Welcome to the Windows Central Podcast, episode 37 for February 17th, 2017. Hey everyone, Daniel Rubino here, joined again with Zach Bowden for another exciting episode of the Windows Central Podcast, where we're going to talk all things Microsoft and Windows and related technologies that have happened in the past week. This week we'll be talking about an ongoing topic, is Windows Mobile still dead? The topic that never dies. We'll also talk about the Surface table, which Zach has done a lot with, including running the original software and then being brave and putting Windows 10 on what is basically a 10-year-old piece of hardware. I'll talk about the Dell XPS 159560, which is just hitting the market now, and I did a full review for it. Actually, one of my largest reviews I've done, just because I really like that laptop. We'll also talk about Halo Wars 2, which is now available. If you bought the Ultimate Edition, will be coming out in the coming days for the normies. And then we'll also talk about a little bit about mechanical keyboards, because it's my new sub-hobby I'm doing on the site, because I find it so fascinating that there's so many of them. And evidently I reviewed one of the top mechanical keyboards in the world, the Topra from Japan. So there we go. Zach, how are you doing today?
I'm not too bad. I'm still mourning the death of Windows Phone since 2014. So
yes, I think it goes back to 2012. But we should I can't talk today. We should also mention that if you're watching this on Beam or YouTube, Zach and I are both using the new Logitech BRIO camera, which is capable of 4K, but as you probably know, can't actually do 4K on pretty much any service that we're aware of, including Skype or YouTube. But you can record in 4K on your PC, although not on Mac, because we all know Macs aren't very good at keeping up with modern technology. Nonetheless, this camera is not useless because it does not 4K. It does do HDR rendering, basically, so it's very contrasty, and it's actually a very bright camera, which is really nice. So if you want to be curious about that camera, see if there's a difference in our YouTube or Beam streams to see if it's something. It also does have Windows Hello built in, so it's a $200 camera, but if you don't have Windows Hello on your PC, this is probably, I'm going to say, it's actually the best way to get Windows Hello on your PC. If you want facial recognition, you of course can buy a $20 fingerprint scanner and do that right now. But if you want the facial recognition thing, this is really the only consumer popular way to do it at this time. There is the Intel RealSense camera. You can, of course, use your spare Kinect if you have one, but I don't recommend that. That thing is so huge. It actually needs a tripod. You can't mount it really on top of your monitor. But yeah, I mean, so what do you think of this camera, Zach?
I'm actually really enjoying it. Like you said, not many services support 4K. Most support 1080p though, and this camera is pretty blinding at 1080. So even if you were just going to use this as a 1080p camera, it does 1080p 60 frames, and that's pretty much excellent for gamers or people who do webcasts and whatnot, because most services support 1080. I think YouTube does do 4K. Not sure if it does it live, but you can definitely upload 4K to YouTube. It also does 720, but it does 720 at 90 frames per second. So if you need a little
90 or 60?
90. It goes up to 90 at 720.
Wow.
Which is...
I didn't know that. I didn't know that was a thing.
Yeah, well, it goes up to... I mean, not that you would be able to tell the difference between 60 and 90, I don't believe. But it does do 90 if that's something that you need. And so it's all over the place. Dan, you just turned your camera off.
Oh, that's the Skype thing. Hold on.
Okay,
Skype is so weird. If you minimize Skype, the camera turns off, which I guess actually makes sense from a privacy standpoint. But yeah, that's just, it's also the recorder. If you minimize the recorder, it stops recording.
Yeah, apparently that's not a bug as well. Apparently it's a feature, which makes no sense, because I would like to be able to continue recording.
It would be nice if it gave you a notification to alert you that that's happening, and then going, do you want this to happen?
Yes or no? Absolutely not. It just does it for you because it thinks it knows best. Anyway, we should move on to our first real story. Windows 10 Mobile is still dead. This week, news came out that market share, every month market share stats come out, every couple months everybody complains that Windows 10 Mobile is dead. This time, Windows 10 Mobile's market share is at 0.3%, which is down from 0.6% when it was last time or something. It's going down, which is no surprise. It's been going down since 2014. And, I mean, once it hit 1%, it was dead. And it's still dead now. It's
a statistical anomaly at that point, because even at 0.3%, that is with what's the margin of error once you start putting that in there? I mean, it's just
I mean, we say dead. We say dead because that's what the media says. Media says dead. It's a big thing people like to click on. But is it really dead? Even though nobody's using it. I mean, there are a few people. I'm one of them, and Dan is someone else. And I'm sure many of you tuned in are also still using Windows phones. And I don't know about you, but my phone still gets updates. I'm still getting app updates from the likes of Slack, Instagram. Microsoft are updating some of their apps sometimes, which is nice. And I'm still getting OS updates through Windows Insider and eventually via production. I'll get one each month with the Patch Tuesday, although this month Patch Tuesday got delayed. I'm not sure if the dead is the correct term for it, because it's
hibernation.
Just more like it's just not popular. Nobody likes using it, so they don't.
Well, there's definitely a combo, right? I mean, first of all, no one should be surprised. The last Lumia release was over a year ago. It's a year and 3 months at this point. So like, what company goes a year and 3 months without like a flagship phone? I mean, there's the Elite X3, but we all know this as of that. It's like the retail channels it's available in. It's not really meant for consumers, of course. You do have the Alcatel Idol 4S, which is actually a pretty popular phone. It gets really good reviews, and not even just from, fans, but just from regular people who are saying it's on sale this week for $288 at T-Mobile, which is just a steal for what is excellent hardware. But I mean, for the most part, there's no hardware supporting this stuff, and there's no, waves being made. And so you can't have a popular OS with like no major hardware to tell a story. And this is definitely rock bottom. I mean, make no mistake about it. I mean, there's really no way it can get worse. And I've been saying that for a while, because like, it can't go lower. It can, but statistically it doesn't matter at this point. But we're in a weird stage now. I would say last year we were in a stage of, it was the retrenchment, right? And, we've said that Microsoft sort of underestimated how much that was going to affect, I think, their market share. OEM partners have not really stepped up and embraced Windows 10 Mobile, and frankly, I kind of don't blame them. But now we're in a sort of a weird phase. I think this is what we want to kind of talk a little bit about, which is what's the status of Windows 10 Mobile, because we think that there may be a hardware shift coming up in the next year, and there's a purposeful reason why you don't want to flood the market with current Windows 10 mobile devices. What do you think about that, Zach?
I mean, I'm pretty sure I've expressed this opinion quite openly. I don't think Windows 10 Mobile's current form will be with us much longer. We're considering Windows 10 on ARM is on the way, and the goal with that is to eventually get that running on phones. It's highly unlikely that Microsoft will offer full Windows 10 as an upgrade to current existing handsets. I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm saying it's unlikely, just from Microsoft's own deciding rather than something being technical. Because we've seen for Windows 10 running on a Snapdragon 820 already. That's how they demoed it officially. However, that doesn't mean at all that the HP Elite X3 or the Alcatel Idol 4S will be getting a full Windows 10 to ARM upgrade. Microsoft have already come out and said that they are targeting the Snapdragon 835 and above, which in other words means new handsets only. So when Microsoft eventually comes out with a new phone, whatever they call it, it will likely be running a Snapdragon 835, or if timing suggests 2018, it might be running something even newer than that. So I guess we'll have to wait to see on that behalf. So what does that mean for current Windows 10 mobile users? Right now, not much. Microsoft recently came out and actually said Windows 10 Mobile will continue receiving updates and builds past the creators update, which means you're good for the next 6 months up until Redstone 3. But once we hit Redstone 3, what does that mean? Because Microsoft didn't comment on the Redstone 3 beyond there. Does that mean Redstone 3 is going to be the last update for current Windows 10 mobile users? We're not sure. There's rumors that suggest it will be, but it's difficult to explain, because obviously Windows 10 Mobile is Windows 10 and vice versa. So if Windows 10 Mobile, as it currently stands, was to stop receiving updates, how does that benefit the platform, especially considering we're not expecting a Surface phone until 2018?
There's so much. Well, yeah, I do expect, I suppose, I don't know. I mean, there's a transition that's going to go on, right? There does seem to be a point where things are going to shift with the OS. Visibly, it's going to look the same. You're still going to have this like mobile experience, and there's a reason why they continue developing, the UI for Windows 10 Mobile and the apps and everything around it, because that's going to look the same. But what's underneath it, there's a good chance, I think, Microsoft wants to shift from Windows 10 Mobile as it is today, this like limited subset of Windows 10, to proper Windows 10. I mean, we've seen Windows 10 on ARM, Windows 10 Cloud. These things are not, I don't think, coincidences. I think Microsoft wants to shift to that as their mobile platform with phone capabilities, which is a much more powerful system, especially once you do the continuum thing, right? Now you're talking like unlimited, a real Windows 10 machine. But to do that, you have to have like a phase where old hardware gets replaced by new hardware. And I think that is what we're in now. And I think, and my guess is, and this is just a guess, that Microsoft purposefully, we talked about retrenchment before, but they don't want to flood the market with they don't want to repeat the Windows Phone 7 thing, where they did a huge marketing push for Windows Phone 7, and then Windows Phone 8 came out and said, like, oh, sorry, all those handsets don't get Windows Phone 7. They, I think, almost kind of want some of the hardware to sort of slow down a bit so that those affected by this shift to this new OS, and it technically would be a new OS, it'll just look similar, there won't be as much blowback because you're not going to screw over a lot of customers. So, like, this question about switching the kernel, the OS and everything, well, not the kernel, but like the actual, it's the same problem with going from Windows 32-bit to Windows 64-bit on a PC. Like, you can't do a direct upgrade. You need to flash redo the whole computer.
And that's essentially what this is. A lot of Windows phones on the market, I mean, all Windows phones on the market currently run Windows 10 ARM32. It is Windows 10 Mobile, but it's an ARM32 compile. When full Windows 10 eventually hits ARM devices, it'll be running ARM64. So imagine the 32-bit, 64-bit scenario. It's the same thing, but for ARM. Now, again, the Snapdragon 820 in the Elite X3 and Alcatel is an ARM64 chip. However, the Windows 10 Mobile OS that's installed on it is 32-bit. I don't know why. I guess Microsoft does have Windows 10 Mobile 64-bit compiles internally. Nobody seems to be using it.
We've heard about Windows 10 Mobile 64-bit going back a few years, that this was a thing working on, and I don't know the status of that, if that's been like supplanted by Windows 10 on ARM 64-bit, and which would kind of make sense. But then, it leaves a question about the Elite X3, which would seem like would be the type of device that would benefit most from this upgrade, but it's not clear if that can be done, if that would be offered. Honestly, the HP Elite X3 might get it, because HP's been actually very good with supporting their devices, and there may be a way for them, where they're going to have devices come back to them, and maybe they can flash them themselves, or they create a utility that can actually do this. It's a little risky because there's the bootloader, and there's like the way mobile devices and phones work is a little bit different than a PC. But I definitely think we're in a transition stage. I mean, there's something that's going to shift here with their mobile strategy. We've said it before, Microsoft does internally have a mobile strategy. We just don't know what it is yet,
It's a very good secret at Microsoft. Not many people know it, apparently.
Yeah, and I think some of the stuff is pretty obvious. I think full Windows 10 with ARM support and Windows 10 Cloud and all this, I think are real hints about where this stuff can go, but we just need it so that what our desktop OS is, when it's put on a mobile device, we talked about this before with C-Shell, that it gets the mobile interface again. So it looks like just a regular Windows 10 mobile device.
See, my problem with the idea that once they switch to the full desktop that looks like mobile and so on, and whatever happens to Windows 10 Mobile, there's rumors that it might stop getting updates, so on and so forth. I feel like it shouldn't, because down the line, because part of the reason why they're switching to full Windows 10 is because full Windows 10 is much more popular than Windows 10 Mobile. It's in use by 400 million PCs and devices right now on the market, which is a big selling point for developers. They can target the Windows Store either by building a universal Windows platform app or just putting their Win32 app in, which is fine both ways, especially since Windows 10 will be able to emulate Win32. Now, what about down the line, say 5 years, 10 years, when Windows 10 has hit its billion mark and developers are actually taking the platform seriously? When developers are finally building universal Windows platform apps, Windows 10 Mobile will be a great idea for mobile handsets again, because even though full Windows 10 is great on some high-end devices, low-end devices will never be able to run it. And this is where Windows 10 Mobile could step in, because then not only is the Windows Store full of apps because of Windows 10 full, it just makes sense on lower end devices. And I think if they killed it off, I don't know if that's what if that would be the smartest choice. It's like getting rid of a SKU that could be popular one day or useful one day.
Sure. I mean, well, it's kind of like Windows RT and Windows Cloud, right? Windows Cloud seems to be almost a reborn version of Windows RT, which was never formally killed off. They just, stopped making any devices that run it and stopped, releasing the SKU as an option for OEMs. But internally, we knew, conceptually that was still being worked on. And, I think it still makes a lot of sense for enterprise and schools as a choice because of the security features and not installing, actual executable applications. Definitely a lot of mystery here. I've said it before, it'd be really nice at Build if Microsoft dropped some hints about mobile and what they were doing and what's going on there. But we are, sort of, I think, in this weird transitionary stage. But that number that came out this week, that 99.6% of all mobile devices are Android or iOS, is daunting. I mean, that is just like...
It might as well be 100%.
Yeah, it's just like... it's pretty scary. Now, the issue, of course, is why would developers target Windows 10 Mobile? But that is slowly fading away, not because Windows 10 Mobile is growing, but because making a mobile app is not really indifferent than making a Windows 10 app. And that's, the real goal there, that eventually you just make an app and we're already seeing this. Should we mention about that bug that we were running into the store this week?
Right, yeah. So me, Richard and Dan figured out yesterday that an update that was recently pushed to the Windows Store, we're assuming it's a bug. It may be an unannounced feature that's coming down the line. We don't know. But some Xbox One apps that were specifically designed for Xbox One only are showing up in the Windows Store on PC that is available for download. So Richard Devine, he's one of our editors at Windows Central. Richard Devine was able to download the Amazon Video Xbox One app on his Windows 10 PC. Now, the app launches and then pops up the Xbox sign-in page, but then it doesn't go any further than that. I was able to download a video service app, which is available only on Xbox One, which does work. And even on the Windows Store page where you click on it, it says Xbox One only, and I was still able to install it. And that app does actually boot up and work absolutely fine. And then I was also able to download the WWE Network app, which is only available on PC, Xbox, and I think the Surface Hub. I can't remember the icons, but It downloaded and was able to launch on my Windows phone. It doesn't work. The app just says there's no network, but it does launch and doesn't crash upon launching. So I'm assuming...
It doesn't show you. I mean, it's a strong argument about how close these apps are now becoming between each other. Like an Xbox app, is not going to be dramatically different from what's on PC, and then even going to mobile. There's still some differences there, little bits of code that needs to be put in. But now, there still is this bigger problem, I would say, that with Windows 10, and not only adoption, it's kind of stalled, I would almost say, at 450 million, right? I mean, mind you, they were supposed to be at 1 billion at this point. You're off by 500 million. That's not insignificant. But there's also this issue about how many people are actually using Windows 10 apps, even on PC and tablets. And I've talked about this before. When I'm on desktop, like right now, the Surface Studio, I don't use UWP apps all that often. If I feel like when I'm on a desktop, I'm living in a browser most of the time. And that's still, I think, how a lot of people use PCs. When I go to a laptop or a Surface device, like a Surface Pro or Surface Book or even a tablet, all of a sudden those UWP apps now become way more useful for me because I don't like running browsers mobile. I'm almost against it. I prefer using an app. But that issue is still, as popular as Windows 10 is getting, and especially compared to OS 10 and everything, you still have this hurdle with apps that even on PC, it's not like a slam dunk. Everybody is just running UWP apps. Although I use quite a few. I love the Twitter app, even if it crashes every once in a while. I think it's still a beautiful app that runs really well. I use CBS News when our dear leader is giving his very entertaining press conferences. I put it in one of my windows and I stream it. And it looks beautiful. It runs very well. And that's not even a Windows 10 app, actually. I think that's still an older one. Netflix, Hulu, all these run very well. I love Fox Sports app, the Fox Sports Go, I believe it's called. If you saw me on Instagram last week, I was playing Gears of War 4 with my friends, and on my other monitor I had Fox Sports 1 on watching UFC at the same time. And it looked beautiful. Everything just ran perfect. I had zero issues with the whole thing. So there are some benefits to it, but there's still none of this is a slam dunk, I think, for them.
And of course, the Universal Windows platform itself will continue to evolve and get better and more complicated.
Right. And that's really what we need to happen.
And I assume the end goal is when the Universal Windows platform will eventually be as powerful as Win32. I don't know if there's any reason why it couldn't be in the future. I'm saying not next week, of course. Way down the line. Obviously, there's Redstone 4 to get through and probably Redstone 5 and 6 before even thinking about changing the code name. So there's a lot coming. Also, I just want to quickly show on the camera, if you're listening to the video podcast, you can see there's the WWE Network app, which is an Xbox PC app, not on Windows Phone yet. It's here and I can launch it. And again, it says there's no network, but the app doesn't crash. So there is some sort of check going on, I guess. I don't know what, but it is very interesting to see these universal apps. Even though apparently it's not available on Windows Phone, it runs perfectly fine, air quotes.
Yeah, it really makes you sort of wonder with Windows 10 on ARM, if they put that on a mobile thing, how that differentiation will exist. Like, so say there's like a WWE app and it says it's only for, Windows 10 desktop. What happens with Windows 10 on ARM and if it's on mobile? Like, does it recognize, would it still be able to run the app? I mean, I don't know. There's a lot of interesting questions and things that need to be sort of fixed. Regarding Win32, and I talked about this on Ask Dan, which should be out, I believe, Monday. Mark's very busy editing another video right now. But I think I'm a firm believer that Microsoft's long-term goal is to get rid of or diminish Win32 apps. They would very much like to have it happen. Now, it'll never completely happen. Enterprise, hospitals, and there's always a legacy application will always exist, and there'll always be that need, at least for the next, probably decade. So there's no way they can get rid of that Win32 subsystem for running those kind of systems. But getting apps into Project Centennial, which creates basically a hybrid app between UWP and older Win32 apps. And then that gives companies time to actually build out a full UWP app. And during that time, Microsoft wants to build out UWP, so it is stronger. This also ties into things like registry, which they want to get away from the registry, modifying that every time you install an application. They want to be able to, just have a streamlined app experience. And if they could snap their fingers and get rid of Win32 apps, I think they would. But I'm enjoying it very much. I use Photoshop Elements as the UWP app. And I tell you, one of the cool benefits of this was when you go through Adobe and get a license, you can only install Photoshop Elements on 3 computers. I believe it's 3, may even be 2. And it's really annoying too because you can't, it doesn't automatically disable the other computer if you install it in a new one. You have to actually disable it on that computer. With the UWP app, I can run it on 10 computers, which is insane. I mean, it's a really good license deal right there, and it's on sale. So there's a little push for you.
That device limit is actually kind of funny because with Windows 8.1, it was the device limit was 81. Because
I don't have the limit though.
Do what? You past 10?
You see all the laptops and devices I run. I've never had a message come up saying you've installed this on too many devices. Well, and I don't know what that is.
You just alerted Microsoft of a really major bug that they need to fix.
Probably. I'm totally fine with it because I literally have laptops coming in once a week now, and it's I used my regular account. I used them as my regular devices. I'm not having issues, so I don't know. But, that's a strong case, why I really like these, Centennial apps. They're pretty impressive. Even things like Crystal Disk Mark, which is used for testing SSDs, used to be a real pain. You had to go find it on the web, and it was sometimes a Japanese website, and it was just, not fun. With the UWP system, though, it's always there, and it gets updated. They don't, I love the ability for devs to be able to push updates for what are Win32 applications. Like, that's a really cool thing.
Yeah, it's definitely, I love the one-click approach with the Windows Store, because Slack is an app that any PC I use, I download Slack, and before I used to go to the website and download it. Now I just go to the Windows Store, one click, it's installed and up and running instantly, and I love it. It's so simple. And again, this is where Windows 10 Cloud will benefit. I wrote an article this week which essentially echoed what I said on the podcast last week. It was Windows 10 Cloud is a great idea because it's great for low-end devices and devices where you wouldn't normally run a Win32 program. And in the case in which you would, it's great to be able to go to the Windows Store and just tap on Slack, download, and just have that ready to go. I really think it's really nice. And if Slack wanted to, they could tap into the Universal Windows APIs and get a live tile. They could also probably sync login data.
They do have a live tile.
Oh, do they have a live tile? Oh, yeah, they do have a live tile. That's correct.
Yeah, it shows the last message in the person's photo. It's actually pretty cool looking.
Do they have actionable notifications?
No, I don't think
that would be nice.
Well, because I use it mostly on mobile and phone, which of course is an 8.1 app, so that does not have that. That's part of the Windows 10 APIs. I forgot, actually, do I have any? I might probably have one here, because I think Jez was pinging me.
I have heard, that this is slightly off topic, that at some point, I don't know if this is still in the plans, but when Microsoft's Windows 10 Mobile Continuum 2.0, I'm calling, when their windowed mode and whatnot shows up on mobile, I heard that Windows 8.1 apps will also be able to run in windowed mode. So you know how currently in the Continuum environment, some apps are grayed out because they're old Windows apps and they don't run in Continuum. I'm hearing once windowed mode hits, you'll be able to launch the app just in a window the size of a Windows Phone 8.1 screen, which makes sense if you think about it. So that's something to keep an eye out for whenever Continuum improvements show up, because they're not here yet, if you haven't noticed.
Yeah.
They said, didn't Donna say it will be here when it's ready? I guess that makes sense. So when it will be ready when it's ready. Same with the Surface Phone and everything mobile.
I'm still going to call it Surface Pocket. I think
Surface Go.
I think it's not Surface.
I like Surface Go.
Well, Surface Go is not bad. Okay, yeah, Surface Go is pretty good. I like Surface Pocket though, because it just sells itself. It's like, now have your Surface in your pocket, and it just shows someone putting it in a pocket. Like, so Microsoft, that's a free idea. They're probably going to go with that. I really don't think they would call it Surface Phone, because Surface Phone implies severe limitations. That implies it's not, it's not a PC.
Yeah. Where
Surface Pocket goes, wait, is that like a PC that can make
calls? Is that
calls?
Pokemon 2? Go 2? No, it's not.
No.
It doesn't have Pokemon Go, so...
Well, no
maybe
Snapchat
one day,
either.
Maybe one day.
Yes.
No Snapchat. Yes. Do you reckon whatever his name is, Snapchat CEO, will ever give in to the Windows platform?
I mean, all developers will be persuaded by one thing, which is market share and a dollar sign. If they see an opportunity, they'll do it. And that's still a thing. I should mention, I forgot, I gotta send this to our newsroom because I completely forgot. But one of my favorite apps is still... So Untapped, because I like beer, and they have an app on Windows Phone, but it's I forgot the name of the tools now because it's been so long ago. It's a ported app that used tools from iOS, I believe, to come over. And it's still like that, but Untapped actually got a big update this week to 3.0, and it's for iOS and Android, but they are doing a version for Windows. They didn't give details, but they say it's coming later this year. Which sounds like, I'm going to expect it in October. Although who knows, maybe. But it's not dead. That's all I'm saying. And the current app still works. It's just a little goofy here and there, but you can totally use it for check-ins and everything like that. So one of my favorite apps is still not dead. And that's kind of the weird thing here. It's like, we're still, for a platform that supposedly is kind of dead, we're still seeing like releases. There's a game that came out today. We have it on Windows Central. Let's see if I can get the name. Hyperlight EX, and so it's on Windows 10 and Windows 10 Mobile, which is really nice. And it came out the same time as the iOS version. So is
it universal? I guess it is.
Yeah. I mean, it seems like, you buy it once, it plays on both systems. I'm not sure if it syncs your data up between them. I still have to figure that out. But
see, that's the thing. We've said this before, but Windows 10 Mobile, Microsoft's original intention was for Windows 10 Mobile to piggyback off the success of Windows 10 Desktop with the universal platform, and we are seeing that happen. It's just happening very slowly, and also it doesn't help that a lot of developers are pulling their older Windows Phone 8.1 apps, which makes it seem like the platform's getting worse. Yeah. But we've got, when you think, like Dan said last week or the week before, no developer has pulled a universal app yet. And it wouldn't make sense for them to, because the universal platform is still now, whereas the old Windows Phone 8.1 Silverlight apps are obviously from the generation before it. And which is why I also wish Slack would just update their app to universal. Why are they still building an 8.1 app? Doesn't make sense.
Well, it does. I mean, so this is the other tough problem, because when you actually look at the Windows Phone Pi, 75% are still 8.1 devices.
True. Yeah.
So, like, not only is, like, Windows Mobile 0.3%, but that 0.3%, only 25% of it is Windows 10 Mobile, which is ridiculous. But as someone who likes Windows 10 Mobile, I cringe at 8.18 apps now, because I like the new design of Windows 10 Mobile. Plus, I like all the API features. I love actionable notifications. It's such a huge thing for me. And all the other things that, allows to tie in. So, I don't get that upset when an 8.1 app disappears. It's like, I get it. It's using old tools that are really not longer supported. They're very limited. And a lot of times the technology changes. Like for banks, banks are a perfect example where they have to have a lot of upkeep on those apps to keep the security valid. But if you're using older tools and everything like that, it causes problems for developers. I totally get why they want to give that up. I also sort of get why companies like Slack, and Zach, okay,
my camera is back. Right?
And I totally get why sometimes companies want to, like WhatsApp. WhatsApp is still an 8.1 app. And the reason there, it's an extremely popular app. And if you want to target Windows 10 or, Windows Mobile, you can't lock out the 8.1 users. So, I kind of get that. But you can see they're shifting the app. Everything about that app has turned into, on a superficial level, a Windows 10 mobile app. And I feel like they're kind of building the graphics and everything like that. So when they do transition over finally, they'll have everything kind of already done.
Wasn't there an issue recently with Windows Phone 8.1 devices where people couldn't sign in with their Microsoft accounts? It's funny because it just shows how much Microsoft aren't paying attention to Windows Phone 8.1 anymore. That's only in support for another few months, right? I'm pretty sure it's the middle of this year in which support for it ends. Which is a shame. It's an end of an era, I guess. But
we'll hold a funeral.
Yeah. Well, I mean, how many funerals have we had for Windows Phone now? Come on, we can't keep having Windows Phone funerals. It's getting quite sad.
Well, I called it the other day with that conversation we had in Slack. Windows 10 Schrodinger's Windows 10 Mobile. Yeah. It's both alive and dead at the same time, depending how you look at it.
Stupid. But I was saying that the fact that Windows 10 Mobile is now technically Windows 10, it makes it so much more confusing when talking to sources and stuff. It's like, so wait, are you talking about Windows 10 Mobile or Windows 10 Mobile ARM Full Edition or Windows 10
Pro? Even Alcatel confused that. I don't want to say they confused it, but they purposely blur. I mean, they call the Alcatel Idol 4S with Windows 10.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's kind of interesting. So,
and then you've got the people who go, but it is Windows 10. And yeah, but you know what I mean when I say Windows 10 Mobile. Right, what I mean when I say full Windows 10. Don't be picky with me.
All right. We spent a whole half hour on that topic.
We did. So we should move on to something that's also dead. The original Microsoft Surface table.
Yes. Which, I'm first of all, I love how this thing weighs 198 pounds.
I know. I did my back in getting it into this room. I had to have someone help me, obviously, and I pulled my back. Anyway, Microsoft's original Surface, before the Surface RTs, was a table. It was the Microsoft Surface, that's what it was called, and it was a huge table. It was a 30-inch table that was powered by IR sensors, cameras, and projectors. So it wasn't using your standard capacitive touchscreens like most touchscreens today. This was using a much more older technology now. But it had benefits such as being able to object track, and obviously you'd be able to use your whole hand instead of certain touch points and whatnot. It could see every object pretty much, and apps could interact with the objects. For example, there's a ribbon app on the original Surface OS where you draw ribbons and they fly around the screen. And if you put a cup on the table, for example, the ribbons will sort of find their way under the cup and spin around the cup and just sort of let you know that they can see the cup. It's kind of cool. There was also other tech, such as being able to put your Zune or Windows Mobile 6.5 device on the table. The table would see those devices and you'd be able to share data between them and stuff, which was, again, another cool idea. But now in 2017, those tables are dead. The project was killed in 2013, shortly after Microsoft unveiled the Surface 2, which was then renamed to Microsoft Pixel Sense when the Surface RT and Surface Pro were announced. Was killed shortly thereafter. The only device that launched with the Surface 2 software and technology was the Samsung SUR40. Those are even more rare than the original Surface table, and I was able to grab one of the original Surface tables quite recently with the goal of installing Windows 10 on it, because I wanted a table that was powered by Windows 10 for reasons that only I would want. And I did it. It took... And the process to install Windows 10 on the table took around 6 hours in total. The install took around 40 minutes. This is a 10-year-old PC, so it is slower than today's Intel Core i7s, of course. The install took about 40 minutes, but the reason it took 6 hours is because this device isn't in support. There's not really any drivers. The touchscreen, obviously, since even the original Windows Vista operating system that it comes with doesn't interact with touch with the table. Since the touch was a different technology, it only worked within the Surface OS, which was built on top of Windows Vista. On Windows 10, that's the same case. There's no touch within the Windows 10 UI and shell. So luckily, there's people out there who have created projects and done magic to get the touch working. I don't know who they are, but I thank them very much. So I was able to get Windows 10 touch working with the table. Graphics driver I had to extract from the Windows Vista install. Windows Update actually had a few drivers for the table. It had the Wi-Fi driver, it had Bluetooth, and it had sound, which was quite nice, so that took not long at all to fix. And after about 6 hours, it was up and running as well as it could, because the touchscreen, again, it's the very old touch technology, so tracking with the third-party driver that I'm using for it isn't the best. It does work, but it's a little bit laggy, and you can see that in the video that we put up on Windows Central today. But how is it as a table with Windows 10? I think it's really quite nice. Being able to see notifications come in on your phone and also on your table is more handy than you would expect, especially when playing a game, because a lot of people, when playing a game and with a coffee table in the middle, they're usually leaning forward and playing if they're into it, and then they can see the table, and if my phone's in my pocket on the side, if a notification comes in on my phone, I can just see it show up on the table, which is a very nice addition. Then you've also got the added benefit of downloading any app or program you want. Microsoft in 2009 or 10, I guess, released a touch pack for Windows 7, which had a number of cool sort of touch-based apps. There was one called Surface Globe, which was it's basically like Google Earth but designed by Microsoft. There's also Surface Lagoon, which is just like a pond where there's AI fish in it, and those now work on the Surface version 1. Those were originally designed for the Surface 2, working fine on the Surface 1, absolutely no issues at all. I can also log into Groove and stream music straight from my Groove account now, and the sound system in this isn't all that bad. It's actually quite it's quite rich. I definitely enjoy it. You can also use it as a home network, home media server, sorry. So I can stream things to it. I can share files. I can even watch Netflix on it. And I can even play games. Now, this is obviously very gimmicky, but it's something it can do nonetheless. I tried out GTA San Andreas, Minecraft, and Halo Spartan Assault from the Windows Store, and Angry Birds from the Windows Store. And all of them run great, apart from Spartan Assault, which has some graphical issues. The performance-wise, it runs perfectly fine. It's just, I don't know, some of the textures don't show up properly. I maybe that's because the resolution of the screen is so low. It's a 1024 by 768 resolution screen, which is basically less than HD these days. But I am honestly, most people would look at this and go, what a stupid idea. But I am actually happy with the end result of Windows 10. And I really do think it can be useful. And I do think there is a market for these. Not in its current way, because the original Surface table, the goal of it was its UI was accessible by anybody from any angle. You could have 6 people sit around the table. They could all interact with it, and the UI would always make sense to them because you can flip objects around and stuff. And there was never like a title bar at the top and a taskbar at the bottom. Whereas obviously with Windows 10, that is the case. So you can only really use the UI from one angle. If Microsoft were to, in the future, redesign Windows 10 so that it could work from any angle, and with C Shell, I guess this is possible. I don't know how modular C Shell is in the sense that if it allows them to just make any shell they want for any specific device. I haven't looked that far into it, but assuming that is possible, in the future, Windows 10 could make sense on things like tables where the UI does make sense for most people. And object tracking, of course, is another thing that the Universal Windows platform would have to implement. But it doesn't right now. So the original object tracking doesn't work in the Windows 10 shell. It does work in the Surface shell, and I have got the Surface shell running on top of Windows 10 as well, which is a nice bonus. But again, since the Surface shell and UI and stuff is no longer in support, there's no developers making apps for it, it's kind of useless, which is why if anybody does get a Surface table, and I'm not sure any of you will, if you do get a Surface table, do try and install Windows 10 on it, because after a few days, the original Surface software, although it's pretty cool at first, you realize it's pretty useless as a home user in 2017. Whereas Windows 10, of course, is a full, it's now, developers are still targeting it, and it can be done on the Windows 10, on the Surface table.
I would also say there is a French company, we wrote about it last year on Windows Central, that actually does make a full Windows 10 table, coffee table design, and it's pretty cool. It articulates, so you don't have to always look at it straight down. It has a webcam, so you can use it for Skype calls and use it like that. It's not cheap. It's a couple $1,000. I was actually looking at it recently. I'm kind of close to buying it, but I'm hoping they upgrade some of the hardware to it, or they do like a slight refresh, because the hardware is okay with it, but I like to see if they do anything else. It's only like a full HD display, but it's definitely kind of neat. And I agree. I mean, I would love... The secret to this, of course, is that it looks like a normal table. Like it would be kind of cool to have like a fake wood, like it just digitizes a wood.
Oh right, yeah.
A cover, a tabletop. So it looks like a table, but that's actually digital. And then when you come up to it, then you can go into Windows and have an interface with it and everything like that. But yeah, even getting notifications. I think most people are like this when they're sitting on the couch. And we do it all the time, my girlfriend and I. We sit there and we watch like a movie, and I'm like, oh, who's that actor? And I go to look it up, right? And you're always busting out the phone. But or you're looking up stuff where you just can't, there's no reason why having a table like that, I would totally use something like that. There are some usability issues, of course, like input is still an issue. Yeah, you can use the on-screen keyboard, but obviously it's probably faster on a phone because it fits in your hands. So now you add a keyboard to it. Of course, you can do a Bluetooth keyboard. Those are good enough these days, but it's still, what do you do with the Bluetooth keyboard when you're not using it kind of thing? And, so there's some clunky issues, I think, with it, but for basic interactions and stuff like that, but it's still niche, but I definitely see like a potential for this, and this is the whole Internet of Things, in which you talk about in the video too, where this stuff is going, the idea that you're always kind of connected. Even there was that company that's kind of sketchy because we don't know much about them, but they're selling people have made smart mirrors. You can do this on Reddit. People using Windows 10 IoT, and some of them are using full Windows 10. And it's like a full mirror, but then it projects Windows 10 through it. And so you use it as a mirror, but then it also displays information. But you can also use it as like Windows 10. You can launch apps. You can show the weather and do all sorts of things. And this stuff, I think, is really neat. There's a lot of potential for something like this, where you can just have it in the kitchen or in the hallway, where it just displays information. I don't know. I really like this idea. A lot of it's going to come down to execution, pricing. Like a $3,000-$4,000 table that runs Windows 10 is pretty awesome. It's not going to obviously be a huge consumer hit, but I would like something like that myself. I mean, it's just getting right.
Me putting Windows 10 on the original Surface table was more of a proof of concept rather than something that I would recommend people do if they own one of these. Because, again, like I said, the touch issue is there.
Right.
Sometimes the Wi-Fi driver crashes and gives a blue screen. There are issues with it. It is more of a proof of concept. And now that I've used a table running Windows 10, I can definitely see why I think it's a good idea. I mean, I honestly, like I said, the notification issue benefit alone, when I'm watching TV, my phone's in my pocket or over on the desk, and just on the table, I can see my notifications coming in. If I need to react to something, I can. I can also install the Twitter Universal app, and if I get a tweet in that comes in through my phone and obviously on the app on the table, I can just tap on it and quickly access that there without having to get up and use my phone. And then obviously just close it and go back to the Surface tabletop, whatever it is I was currently doing. Anyway, it's more of a convenience thing rather than anything. Another benefit is I use Hue lights quite a lot now, and there is a third-party app on the Windows Store called Hetero for Hue, which is very nice. It would be nice if there was a first-party app, maybe one day. But for now, the Hetero for Hue app works absolutely fine, and I can now control my lights from my table, which is more useful than you would think. I know you just take out your phone or whatever, but a device that's just sitting on and you can just ring up and go, oh, light on. Done. You don't have to think about it. It's like a light switch, but on your table. It's pretty. Yep. There are benefits to a table running Windows.
Well, I guess we'll have to wait a little longer. I'll check out that French table again, see if maybe it's also an issue of shipping.
Yeah, I might look into it if it's from France. They can ship to us.
All right. All right, let's talk about, let's see, for about 15 minutes left. Dell XPS 15 9560. If you haven't checked it out yet, it's on the front page of Windows Central. Video should be going up any moment too. Mark's busy editing. I gave him a lot of false starts, unfortunately. It was not a great day. But the XPS 15 update from last year's model, which I also reviewed, looked exactly the same. This is... I don't want to complain too much about it, but Dell is playing it very safe with the XPS line recently, and I kind of don't blame them. It works. I actually have no fundamental complaints about the way an XPS looks, but they're not really, they haven't changed a single thing about it. They're not even offering the 15 with the rose gold color, which I kind of think would look kind of nice. It looks great on the 13-inch. Why not the 15? At least offer it as a custom option. So, they just make them when they need to. But still, very nice device, Kaby Lake quad-core processor, and this is, people always ask me, and I'll be doing a comparison video at some point, the HP Spectre versus, 15 versus the XPS 15, or versus maybe even Surface Book or even a Razer Blade, and at least for those other laptops, the big difference here is quad-core. Quad-core is it's a 45-watt chip. It's very different from a 15-watt dual-core, which is what Surface Book uses. It's what the HP Spectre uses. And it's a huge performance gain for it. Now, not everybody needs quad-core. Like, you can run a dual-core Core i7 and still be very happy. Like, Windows Store apps blast on that thing. So there's no real benefit if you're doing normal computing. Quad-core helps obviously with gaming. It helps with rendering graphics and photo editing, and of course video processing, engineering, people who run VM. You need quad-core for that. You got to think of this as a mobile workstation. And so that's why the XPS 15 is different. Now, what you give up for that, of course, it's a straight up laptop, right? There's no pen support whatsoever, even for the 4K touch. It doesn't turn to a tablet. It doesn't fold. It doesn't do anything. It's a straight laptop. I've said in the past, I'm actually totally fine with that. It's actually how I use my Surface Book. I do not use it very often as a tablet. It's kind of cool I can do that, but I do it once in a while, but most of the time it's straight up tablet. Same with the HP Spectre X360. I use it just as a straight up laptop. And HP is upfront about it. They're like, listen, you can just buy this and use it as a laptop and you'll be very happy. And they're totally right about it. And that's a big change from laptops years ago where, there was this trade-off. If it was a 2-in-1, it was clunky. Now it's not anymore. But there is still that trade-off, which is those are still dual-core devices, whereas this, again, quad-core. So they put in that. It's also got now the GTX 1050. That's an update from the GTX 960M from last year. And they also doubled the video RAM, so it went from 2 to 4 gigabytes. I was very impressed with the GTX 1050. It's a very performant card. If I had to compare it to the 960M, it would be basically what a 970M would be like. It comes just below a 980M, which at a year ago was the top of the line mobile video card that people were using in laptops. And it can do very well. I was playing Gears of War 4 on it at 60 frames per second around medium settings, playing Doom on high at 60 frames per second with vertical sync on. So this thing games, it's I had really no problems with it whatsoever. You still can get 8, 16, or 32 gigs of RAM, and of course those are not soldered on, so you can change them yourself, and you can upgrade later on if you do, and I'll be doing another tutorial on that soon. But what's cool, that means is you can basically buy this as like an 8 gig and 256 gig storage and upgrade it later to 32 gigs and 2 terabytes of SSD. And you can do that literally in under an hour. It's a super easy trick. And I really like working the XPS 15s. They're just easy you can change the Wi-Fi, you can change the SD card, and you can change the RAM with ease. You can even replace the battery, and you can even upgrade the display if you really wanted to. The only thing I didn't like about it is they use Killer Wireless for the Wi-Fi card, and I think that was a bad choice, only because it does have this issue where if you're maxing out the throughput on it, so like when I was downloading a Steam game and it was like 70 gigs and I was trying to browse the web, the Wi-Fi would conk out on it, and the driver would basically crash. Now, it's a driver issue, so I expect Dell to fix this. It's an early bug. The device just came out. These things happen, But I would have preferred had they used just the Intel cards that are out there now. They just came out the 4th generation Intel Wi-Fi card. I have one on the way, and I'll be doing a tutorial on how to upgrade it. It's $25. It's actually a really cheap upgrade. But I think they would have benefited from just using that, and that's kind of my only issue. They also have a fingerprint scanner now, $25 extra. No brainer if you're ordering this device, get the fingerprint scanner. It's actually a very good one. It's made by Synaptics. It's super fast. It's the touch type, not the swipe. So it's very modern. Again, my issue here is I feel like Dell knew they were going to get hammered because the XPS 13 came out without a fingerprint scanner. And almost every review was like, what the hell? It's like, it's 2000, we're going to 2017, and you still don't have a camera or a fingerprint scanner on this thing for Windows Hello. And so they fixed that. Both the 13 and 15 now can get an optional fingerprint scanner for $25. And why I really like that, this fingerprint scanner feels like they were just like, screw it, and let's just cut a little tiny hole in the chassis or the top board, and we'll just stick it through. There's no bezel around it, and so and that would be beneficial because when you're not looking at it, you can feel where it is. You can't really feel where this thing is. It's flush and it just blends right in. So you can't feel it. There's really no visual distinction either, which a bezel would help with. Lenovo likes to use a little LED that pops on when Windows Hello is activated. That's also super helpful at nighttime. And so I feel like they just said at the last minute, all right, we can't redesign this thing, so just cut a hole in it and put in a fingerprint scanner. Now, it works. I use it every single time, and it works flawlessly. But I feel like it's a little sloppy. I feel like, and the reason I say that, I actually have another Dell here. Hold on, I'll grab it. I'll be reviewing this next week. This is the Latitude 7280. So this is actually a business laptop. It's really cool, actually. It's basically the XPS 13, but made for companies. It's a little bit smaller display, but beautiful design, absolutely gorgeous hardware on it. And one of the cool things is it has a fingerprint reader and facial recognition. So they were able to, I realized that they put at the top here. So that's where they put their facial recognition. Works very well. But the fingerprint reader, which I'll try to hold up, is very different. This one tells me they designed this to have a fingerprint reader. It's glossy, it stands out, and it actually dips down into the chassis so you can actually physically feel where this thing is. That's a very different design. So, but whatever, it works. I'm glad they put it in. I'd rather have it than not have it, But when it comes to benchmarks, man, this thing is a beast. It absolutely beat everything else on the market today and that has to do with the fact that the Core i7 Kaby Lake turbo boosts up to 3.8 gigahertz, which is really fast for a laptop. And you combine it with that GTX 1050. They even increased the speed of the RAM. So the RAM went from, I think it was 2100 or 1800 to 2400 megahertz, which is pretty fast for a laptop. Gaming laptops can go faster, but it's dependent on the motherboard and chipset and BIOS. But 2400 is really fast. So they increased the speed there. The SSD, they went from a PM951 to a PM961, which is basically the Samsung 960 EVO, which I've reviewed. And that's an awesome SSD. The speeds of this thing are incredible. You get compared to last year's model, the read speeds are 500 megabytes per second faster, but the write speeds tripled, which is huge. I mean, if you use this thing for video editing, you're going to absolutely love how fast this thing writes to disk now. There's no reason to upgrade this thing unless you just want more storage. Whereas last year, I could say, well, because the PM951 was out, but newer SSDs came out that were faster, you can do it,
Have you mentioned battery life quick? How's the battery life on it?
So this is going to come down to two things. One, if you're going to get the full HD version or the 4K, or also how you use it. So if you're going to be using the GPU, the 1050, playing games, it's obviously going to drain much more battery life than if you're just using it as a productivity machine and only occasionally use the 1050. Having said that, I have the full HD version. I buy that on purpose, by the way. I know 4K, everybody's like, oh, glossy 4K, it's gorgeous. And it really is. It's the best 4K display you can get on a laptop. I'm mature enough to know I don't actually need a 4K display, though. I don't do video editing. I don't need it for photography. I prefer the full HD because it's matte. And I could stare at that display for like 10 hours. My eyes won't be tired. And that's huge for me. You also get better battery life. It's cheaper and it doesn't have touch. Again, doesn't bother me. Using that version, I was getting 9 to 10 hours easily on this thing.
Oh, not bad.
It's not bad. I mean, it's a Core i7 quad core with a GTX 1050 and 16 gigs of RAM and 512 gigs of storage. I was super impressed with that. You don't get that in many laptops. Now, if you get the 4K version, take off 3 hours. The 4K panel requires a very strong backlight to basically illuminate all those pixels. And I've seen like some people asking like, well, couldn't you just reduce the resolution of the 4K to full HD? And no, that doesn't. You're still pushing all the same pixels. They're still all being rendered. They're still being backlit. So no, that won't matter.
Yeah, I mean, if it was an OLED screen and you could actually make it so the screen doesn't stretch even at 1080 to the full bezel, then that might help battery. But since it's not, it's an LCD, so
or
it's backlit.
Use black and dark.
Right,
colors,
it's always on, no matter what resolution you're using.
Yeah, but yeah, exceptional battery life. It doesn't get hot. Kaby Lake runs very cool. I had no issues. Even when you're gaming on it, it stayed pretty cool. The fans weren't loud either. They don't stay on during idle. 15-inch laptops usually don't. They have a lot more room for cooling, and so the fans usually don't stay on at idle. So there's just more ability there for ventilation. I still have, the keyboard didn't change. And, I've talked about this before. I like the keyboard a lot. I type on it, I have no issues, but it's like, I can't say it's an amazing experience. The Spectre X360 15, I can say is an amazing typing experience. Like I love typing on that thing. It's 1.5 millimeters of travel. This is 1.3. It's a little bit more shallow. Trackpad, on the other hand, is huge and it's precision. So A+ there, I'm a huge fan of that. And that's the difference between the Spectre and everything. The Spectre, I love the keyboard. I'm okay with the trackpad. On the Dell, I'm okay with the keyboard, but I love the trackpad. So it's like that opposite thing.
Why can't they just combine and make one perfect device?
Seriously. And the speakers are okay. They're on the edge. I talk about this. I still wish I would put them on top near the keyboard, like most 15-inch premium laptops do. But they still keep it on the lip. So they're not downward firing completely. They clear, which is nice. And they actually sound pretty decent, but I think they could do a little bit better. But still, there's nothing like this laptop on the market. And there's a reason why people coming from Apple and who use a 15-inch MacBook Pro immediately look to the XPS 15 because whereas the HP Spectre is a really good choice, it's still dual core. And people coming from a quad core machine typically want a quad core machine. They're like, no, I need this. If you do like programming and you run virtual machines, like you kind of need a quad core with maybe 32 gigs of RAM. Like that is, kind of necessary. And that's why these types of devices exist. But if you're a person who, you think you need this and for gaming, I say it's ideal for people who game at home, have like a sick rig at home. And then on the road, they're like, I still kind of want to play that game a little bit. It's perfect for that. It's not a gaming machine. So if you need that, go buy, and I showed the difference between a 1060, a GTX 1060 and the 1050. That's night and day. I mean, there's a huge jump to the 1060, which is like what the Razer Blade 14 uses. So not quite gaming, but then you have the 1050 Ti, which I'll be reviewing in a few laptops probably in the coming weeks as well, that's actually supposed to be a very good card, slightly better than the 1050. But yeah, Dell's still doing well with the XPS line. It's one-of-a-kind laptops. It's actually what I use,
It makes you wonder what they're planning, what Microsoft is planning with the Surface Book 2. Do you reckon they will stick with dual core, or do you reckon they'll take on Dell with these quad cores and more powerful, more professionals, if you know what I mean?
So it's a great question and people ask it all the time. I saw one review of the Spectre X360 15, and I won't name the publication, but they're just like, it was a missed opportunity for HP because they could have put in a quad core chip and maybe a 1050. I get that in the sense like you want that. But let's look at this. I mean, the HP Spectre has, I believe, a 74 watt-hour battery, and it runs a dual-core chip with a 940MX, and it gets maybe 6 or 7 hours of battery life. I forgot what it actually said on the review. That's running a 4K panel, a really nice 4K panel too. So if they were even able to forget the thermals restrictions, which is not insignificant, if they were able to actually squeeze in a quad core and like say a 1050 there, but keep a 74 watt-hour battery, what do you think is going to happen?
Right. Yeah.
It's going to drop down to about 4 hours. And HP was stressing very much that they wanted this thing to have, all-day battery life so you can leave home. And you pretty much can, By comparison, the XPS 15 which weighs the same as HP's, because HP used all metal, has a 97 watt hour battery and runs quad core. Well, I mean, so just do the math there, right? You can't have everything. And I didn't mention the thermals, but that's not insignificant either. HP kept that device very thin, and it's metal, so it's going to absorb heat a lot more.
See, I think Microsoft could get around this, but because the Surface Book is already kind of, it's not modular, but it is modular in the sense that you can switch out the base for another base, either the higher performance base or the one that doesn't have a graphics card at all, on any model of the Surface Book you choose. You can buy one Surface Book, buy all the bases, and your Surface will work in each of those bases, regardless.
Can I do that? Yeah.
Regardless of if it has an i5 or an i7 or 16 gigs or 8 gigs. So, down the line, I would think it would make sense for Microsoft to just release one Surface each year and have that device be in two sizes, either big or small, which works with either a type cover with a kickstand, or you can also have the base as well. And then
but the performance base only has the GPU, doesn't have the processor.
Right, no, so obviously there'd be different models of the Surface screen, which has the different CPUs and whatnot. You choose that, and then you choose your base, and you can have one with more battery or whatever.
I don't think you can do the Surface Book because if that display for the Surface Book contains the processor, contains the RAM, and contains the storage, I don't think you can put a quad core on that. I don't think it's possible.
True. No, yeah, you're right.
I mean, you could just make it very thick, and then it gets, don't forget, that has to balance off at the bottom, so it's not super top heavy, and it's already top heavy, right? I mean, people have noticed that when they tap the screen, it kind of shakes a bit. So, like I said, there's some legitimate engineering constraints that companies. I think if HP could have put a quad core in there, they would have, but I don't think you can. It's 45 watt versus 15 watt. Like, that's a huge difference in battery draw and the thermal output from those chips. It's massive, so there are restrictions. I don't know if we'll see the Surface Book 2 go quad core. Who knows? Microsoft is pretty good at doing some pretty crazy things. But, like, for instance, you probably could put a quad core in one of these machines, but then you end up throttling the CPU. That's one way these companies actually get around that. And I think the XPS 15, even after like 30 minutes of usage, even the CPU might get throttled a little bit. And that's how you do it, because it's going to get super hot and it's in a tight chassis. So what you do is you cap it, and companies can do that. And that's how they can kind of cheat. But if you're using it and you just need bursts of incredible power, it's still there for you. So these are complicated problems, but there's a reason why the XPS 15 does what it does, and why the HP Spectre does what it does, and Surface Book as well. And that's what's cool about them. They're not equivalent devices. You pick, if you need a pen and a tablet, Surface Book and HP are your choices. If you just want a straight powerful laptop that's a workstation, the Dell is your choice. So you got to pick your poison. Tough choice, but for me, I love the HP Spectre the way it looks. Every time I pick that thing up, it's just like the most premium feeling laptop. But then I pick up the Dell, and I'm like, yeah, that's right, quad core 1050. I played Gears of War on that thing, so I'm pretty excited. Yeah, it's good problems to have. All right. We're actually just over an hour. Let's quickly talk about Halo Wars 2 and mechanical keyboards. Two unrelated topics.
Yeah, so the Halo Wars 2 came out this week. I'm a big fan of Halo. I was a fan of Halo Wars when that came out back in whenever it came out. And Halo Wars 2 is the next version of that. It improves upon a lot of the things that the first game did wrong or didn't do at all. And me and Dan played it yesterday along with Jez Corden. And we
watched.
We just watched. And we had a good time. We did technically lose, but that was that we practically won at first anyway, so it doesn't matter. Our game lasted an hour and a half. Now, of course, I played it today as well. Most of my games lasted 30 minutes, so I don't know what that says about Dan's ability at playing the game.
I was just very slow starter.
It basically, for those who don't know what Halo Wars is, it's what's this category? RTS, right?
Yeah, real-time strategy.
Real-time strategy. So it's not like the normal Halos where you're first person running around as a super Spartan. You're more like a commander that commands an entire army, and you get to
build, Command and Conquer.
Right, you build bases, you take over other people's bases, you destroy people's bases, and you build up an army. You build up resources, power, and then obviously you win. It's great. It's got a campaign. I haven't actually touched the campaign yet. I think Dan has. Early impressions?
Yeah, the campaign's really good. A lot of cinematics, but really good storytelling and really quality cinematics, I would say. But yeah, it's pretty neat story, and I like how they. It's interesting with an RTS. It's top down, that weird angle and everything, and the way they fade in the cinematics into the gameplay is actually pretty cool. Like, they did a really neat job, I thought, of it.
The game itself is also, I believe, standalone, so you don't have to play any previous Halos.
Yes,
including
they made a strong point of this.
Yeah, you don't have to play Halo Wars or Halo 3 or Halo 5. You don't have to play any Halos at all. You can just jump straight with Halo Wars because it's kind of although it's in the Halo universe and it does feature a few of the same characters from the previous Halo Wars game. It's its own sort of thing, so you can jump in and you won't. There may be some references, but it's not tied directly to previous games. As someone
who doesn't do anything with the Halo universe, I can confirm this.
Yeah, it's
fun just to jump in.
Jez Corden wrote an entire review on the game, so if you're interested in the game, make sure you check that out on Windows Central.
Plus, it's a Play Anywhere title, so if you download it it plays on Xbox One, which is pretty cool. And actually, the controls for it are pretty nice because you can use the, of course, Xbox controller, and then it runs, of course, on Windows 10 PC and tablet, and it syncs between your games and all that, which is really nice. So if you can play a game at home and you can take it on the road with you, and then you can use the keyboard and mouse or just keyboard, or if you have an Xbox One S controller with Bluetooth, you can use that as well. So I really liked it. I mean, the graphics are ridiculous. I mean, people who watched this yesterday were pretty blown away about when you call in those elite ships, the giant ones that take up like a third of the screen, and they start dropping lasers down. It's just like it's just an immense scene of chaos, but the graphics are really good and it scales pretty well. So it can run on Surface Pro devices and Surface Book devices, but it becomes a little issue if you're trying to stream that at the same time or do other things. But you can turn down the graphics quite a bit on it. I ran it on the Surface Studio yesterday and had no issues. So.
Yeah, I ran it on a GTX 1060 in ultra wide, so 3400 by 1440.
That must have been cool looking.
It's great. It works perfectly fine, all on ultra. It's really quite amazing. So yeah, definitely check out Halo Wars 2. Especially, I mean, I recommend checking out any Play Anywhere title. It's nice being able to buy one game and have it anywhere. It really is.
It's so cool. I mean, I'm such a huge fan of it. I bought the recent was it Resident Evil? And I barely played it. I've only played like the first chapter.
Are you scared?
No, I just don't have time. But I still bought it because I just love the idea. I love the idea that like it's on my Razer Blade. It's on a couple other devices, Razer Blade Pro. And like I love the idea of like I leave my house, I can just actually grab this thing and it'll be there and it's going to sync up and play. It's just a really cool experience. But yeah, good game. Check it out. Get the Ultimate Edition. You can start playing it today. If not, wait a few more days to get the regular version. But yeah, Play Anywhere. Really good stuff. And just it's a fun casual game. I'm not a hardcore gamer, but I used to love Command & Conquer Red Alert. That was like one of my favorite things to play, and it's very much like that. But just really, really good time. And finally, well, just quickly breeze through this, mechanical keyboards. I have a new hobby, which is I've seen a lot of things on mechanical keyboards, and it's very partisan. People have very strong opinions on what makes a good keyboard. And someone who, you probably saw, I reviewed the Surface Ergonomic keyboard, and, I've never used mechanical. I have, used I'm old enough that I've used IBM keyboards, but it wasn't a thing I got into. It's sort of like the gaming PC world where it's like this subgenre, and there's just craziness. There's like the Cherry MX, which I've heard of, Cherry MX switches. And then I didn't realize there's like blue, there's green, there's orange, there's clear, there's red, and they're all different. And I was just like, fascinated by this stuff because I'm like, well, how do you know which one to buy? Because it's not like you go to a store and you're just like, they have them all lined up and you're like, click, 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 click. Oh, I like that one. Like you almost never get that experience. So you have to kind of buy these things blindly. But I'm, so I'm sorry to go down that road. The first one I reviewed was a Topra. It's called the Real Force RGB. I didn't know anything about this. I just bought it on Amazon. And then I started researching it. I was like, oh, Topra is actually really neat. So they're a company that goes back like 60 years. But in 1983, they started making keyboards. And they make their own mechanical switches. It's called a Topra switch. It's a rubber dome based. And they've been around for a while, and they're kind of legendary. They are actually considered to be the premium of mechanical keyboards out there. And no joke, it costs $250 for this keyboard, but it's fabulous. It weighs 3 pounds. That's heavy for a keyboard. I can like kill someone with this thing. And it has RGB lighting with the 16.8 million colors, and you can program it all. What's really neat because of the design of it, the actuation is customizable. So there's 3 levels. I believe it's 1.8 millimeters, 2.2, or the 1.5, 2.2, and like 3 millimeters. And you can set the entire keyboard to actuate out, like say 3 millimeters, or you can select individual keys and set it to whatever, 1.5 or 2.2. So you can have your backspace more sensitive than your keyboard for the main keys. You can really customize the heck out of that. I've never seen a keyboard that does that. And actuation, of course, is the point at which the key registers the command. And, that's also used with, how much travel and stuff like that. But gorgeous design. I also have coming up, hopefully the next week or two, I believe it's called Matthias. It's a French company. They make an ergonomic keyboard. You might have seen it on my Instagram. It's a split keyboard, like literally split. It's 2 halves. They're connected by a USB cable or like a headphone jack thing. It's kind of weird. Very nice ergonomic keyboard, but it's not backlit, which kills me. There's no LED backlit ergonomic keyboards, but still very nice. I'll be looking at that one. It's also got really nice key design. And I'll be also doing Razer's Black Chroma version 2, which Paul Acevedo did a very good review on, but I'm going to do my own because I'm Dan and I got to do my own thing. Plus, we'll do a video with it. That comes in 3 different switches. That's orange, green, and yellow. I believe we reviewed orange for the main review, and I'll be doing green and yellow and talk about the differences between those because they sound and click differently. I don't know, it's all insanity. And I'll be doing a couple other ones too. So if you guys have recommendations, please let me know on Twitter. Because what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through, do all the reviews for all these, and then at the end of it, I'll do a video of my top 5 favorite keyboards and why you should consider buying them.
Meanwhile, while you mess with all your switches and colors, I'm happy with my chiclet style Surface keyboard.
You say that until you try these.
I used to have a Razer. I still have it. It's over there somewhere. It's my Razer Black Widow 2013, I think it was. It wasn't the backlit one, and I used to really like it. It was loud as hell. Everybody used to hate it when I typed on it, but I used to. It does make you type faster, I think personally. But then again, the chiclet style is so like just sleek and professional.
They are good. Yeah. I mean, I didn't even really touch upon in my Dell Tower review. The XPS Tower SE has a keyboard. It's actually a really nice keyboard. It's just like that, the Surface one, the very minimalist design and everything. Yeah, and that's the thing with keyboards, right? They're super personal. Like some people are just, and that's what I thought is fun with this mechanical stuff. Some people are just like, I use this kind and that's it. And they're just like, they swear by it. It's you have to be both comfortable with the way it feels, the way it sounds, and they do make silent mechanical keyboards that are very quiet when you type. Some people will actually prefer that. The Topra makes a thok, they call it, sound, which is very
like
deep.
Wood.
Yeah. Well, it's because of the way the bass is designed that it's very, it resonates. It's a deep, kind of sound. And I love it. I think it sounds really fantastic. But this is all personal stuff that you have to kind of figure out. But hopefully I'll do these on video and maybe help you. Because if you do type a lot or use for gaming, having a keyboard, it's just like buying a bed. It's something you don't want to skip out on, actually, when you're getting a PC. There's
a really helpful GIF sort of guide that if you type into Google or Bing, Cherry MX GIF, the first link, it's basically just a really long, not really long, it gives you a brief overview on what each color switch does. It also gives you a little GIF of the key in action, which kind of gives you an idea of what it would feel like. And obviously they explain to you what it feels like when typing as well. Of course, if you really want to know what it's like, go out and test it before you buy one. But this is kind of sort of a step in the door on what you can expect from each color, which I think is really quite helpful.
Yeah, Best Buy sell the Razer keyboards, and I believe you can try them. So they usually have on display. Unfortunately, the Topra is not sold in the U.S. It is distributed through a company. See something? I put it in the review. You can buy it on Amazon. You can buy it from online retailers, and they have a return policy and everything like that. But that's the one downside. The other thing is since they're actually made in Japan, so the quality is super high on them. They're actually made in like limited quantities, so they're kind of actually hard to come by. I don't know. It's all cool. It's just like, I didn't know this about a keyboard, I think this stuff was kind of fun. So, but yeah, hopefully I'll be trying these out and letting you guys know. But if someone in comments, I'll just quickly address this, that they wish more keyboards came with, got rid of the USB dongles to support Bluetooth. They do, But I'll tell you this, for gaming keyboards, they will not have Bluetooth because it's all about latency. Bluetooth does have latency. I don't like Bluetooth keyboards. Conceptually, I love it. It's way cleaner and looks better, no doubt about it. But the way the low energy versions work, they actually turn off for a little while, and then they have to, like, there's sometimes a second delay where it before your screen registers, and that seems trivial, but if you're in front of a computer all day, it gets super annoying. And gamers will not tolerate that whatsoever. That's why gamers even have wired controllers. They want everything, it's got to be instant. Those milliseconds do matter for them. So that's why these high-end mechanical keyboards, they're still wired, and you're going to need USB power to if you have the chroma lighting or the RGB lighting too. So
wires are so 2010. Come on. We need everything wireless.
And yet in the Surface Studio, I have everything wired again. So I got a wired keyboard, I have a wired mouse. It works better. I'm sorry. It just is. Bluetooth is just not the best.
Will Bluetooth 5 fix these problems? I hope so.
Well, I mean, Bluetooth 4 is better than Bluetooth. Was it Bluetooth 4.1 is better than 4? I mean, I don't know. It's getting better. It's just very slow.
I can't wait for the day in which everything is wireless. You just walk into a room and it's charging. You don't need
we all have cancer because of all the wires.
Wow. Okay, we should end.
Well, but hopefully by then they'll have the cure. Yeah, so it's okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so that wraps it up. Remember, we can tune into us, I should say, on Thursdays at 4 p.m. Eastern Time, where we do Microsoft Gaming and Libations. That's where me, Zach, and Jez have fun, and we get to play the latest games on either Xbox or PC. Very casual. We also give away codes for the games we're playing during that time, so always worth it to jump in. And we also just chat about Windows and Microsoft, and it's very casual. So make sure you join in for that. That's here on our Beam channel. A lot of fun. Of course, this podcast is recorded live every Friday at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Time, and then it's syndicated on Mondays thereafter, along with the show notes. You can follow me on Twitter at Daniel_Rubino, Rubino, and you can try to ask me some questions. Don't ask me about Surface Phone, though, because I don't know. And you can, of course, follow Zach on Twitter at Zach Bowden, ZACBOWDEN, and harass him as well. We appreciate everybody tuning in for the live broadcast, which will now turn off, but we're going to take your questions. We'll see you guys next week. Take care, everybody. Oh, I look weird drinking. I shouldn't do that on camera.
Don't drink. Right, I am now recording.
I'm recording 2, 3, 2, 1.